The peace talks between the United States and Iran have collapsed, and for now, the door to direct diplomacy is shut. On June 16th, a memorandum of understanding promised a path forward through ceasefires and nuclear de-escalation, but those commitments have evaporated, stalled by a complete breakdown in how the agreement was supposed to be implemented on the ground. Iran is now taking a hardline stance. They are refusing to meet with U.S. envoys at all, insisting that any future communication must pass through intermediaries in Qatar. This diplomatic walkout marks a strategic pivot. Tehran has calculated that a formal treaty is less valuable than their geographic position at the edge of the world's most sensitive maritime choke point. This centers on the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's leadership has recently declared this narrow stretch of water to be the nation's greatest instrument of power. The U.S. position is built on the principle of freedom of navigation. They maintain a heavy presence in the Gulf to ensure that global energy tankers can pass through these lanes without interference. Iran's new demand challenges that presence directly. They are calling for the total removal of all foreign navies from the strait, effectively telling the U.S. military to cede control of the region's waters. But Iran isn't looking for a traditional naval battle. They are moving toward a more sophisticated form of leverage, a plan to transform this international shipping lane into a privatized toll booth. The geography of the Strait of Hormuz makes it one of the world's most extreme physical choke points. At its narrowest, the passage is only 21 miles wide. Iran dominates the entire northern coastline, allowing them to line the shore with naval bases, drone platforms, and sophisticated missile batteries. However, total control of the waterway requires the cooperation of the nation on the opposite shore. That is the southern coastline, controlled by Oman. Oman has traditionally balanced its relations between the West and its regional neighbors. But after facing public rhetoric from the Trump administration threatening its independence, Muscat began prioritizing local security partnerships over reliance on U.S. protection. This shift has led Oman to align with Iran. The two nations have now formed a joint committee to manage the strait together, a partnership that allows them to coordinate maritime traffic and security without Western oversight. To justify this move, Iran is citing its role in maritime safety. They argue that managing search and rescue and environmental protection creates a significant financial burden. Under the framework of management fees, they intend to charge international shipping for passage. With thousands of vessels passing through each year, this toll system could generate billions of dollars in revenue for Tehran. This strategy is born from a deep mistrust of the U.S. financial system. Years of economic sanctions and the freezing of Iranian assets abroad have pushed Tehran to seek revenue streams that Washington cannot easily block. While mediators in Qatar are currently working to unfreeze $6 billion in Iranian funds, the threat of a U.S. ground invasion remains a constant theme in Iranian military planning. They view a steady flow of toll revenue as a way to build a self-sustaining economy that is resistant to Western pressure. Lacking the conventional military reach to strike the U.S. mainland, weaponizing the strait for economic extortion serves as Iran's primary counterweight to American influence. This toll booth plan faces a major legal challenge in the form of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. Under UNCLOS, sovereign territorial waters extend only 12 nautical miles from a coast. When mapping these zones in the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow corridor remains in the middle.
Legally, this is international water, falling outside the jurisdiction of both Iran and Oman. According to international law, no nation has the right to suspend passage through these waters or charge a fee to ships navigating through this international lane. The legal argument against the toll booth hits a wall when it meets Iranian policy. Iran never fully ratified the UN Clause Treaty, and they do not recognize its 12-mile limit as a binding restriction on their sovereign claims. In global politics, international laws often remain theoretical unless a superpower is willing to enforce them through direct military intervention. For the global economy, the situation is increasingly precarious. Billions in oil must pass through a channel lined with Iranian weaponry. At this range, physical presence matters more than legal definitions. By coordinating with Oman to privatize this choke point, Iran is demonstrating that raw geographic leverage can be used to bypass the international rules that govern the rest of the world's oceans.